Welcome to the October 2023 webinar on sales and entrepreneurship, selling yourself and your ideas as a person who stutters. Why won't my screen? So just as a quick recap, if you're new here, this webinar is being put on by the NSA, the National Stuttering Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to bringing hope and empowerment to adults, teens, children, anyone who stutters, their families, and working professionals through support, education, advocacy, and research. Their website, if you want to learn more about them, is westutter.org. And specifically, this webinar is part of the We Stutter at Work program within the NSA, which I'm on, and our other members, Pam and John, are on as well. And this committee helps people who stutter achieve career success through offering resources like practice interviews or mock interviews, as they're also called, webinars featuring career profiles and lots of resources for employer education. If you want to learn more about this particular program, you can go to westutter.org/career success. Just some short guidelines. Let me tap through them all so they're all there. Please try to keep yourselves muted until we get to the Q&A. And for questions and comments, please use the chat. It's the most popular part of the webinars. So there's a lot of great stuff in the chat. And then lastly, this webinar will be available on demand, and we will let you know when it is. So to kick things off, I am your host, Ariel Mahlmann. I'm a person who stutters. I also write a stuttering blog, arielrenee.com, and I work as a marketing professional for a cybersecurity company, and I have been stuttering since I could talk, essentially. Typically, I'm on the other side of this, so it's really cool to be your host this evening. And with me, I have three amazing, esteemed panelists, Maya, Michéle, and Zach, and I'll let them give a brief background on themselves, starting with Maya.
Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be in the space with all of you. My name is Maya Chupkov, and I am the host, creator, and producer of Proud Stutter, a podcast all about stuttering. And then my day job is I'm the Media and Democracy Program Manager at Common Cause California, where I work on local news policy. And I've been stuttering since I could talk, since I was about 3. And my stutter is more on the covert side, and it goes through phases where I might stutter in some situations, but not others. I could go maybe a few weeks without stuttering, and then all of a sudden I stutter a lot. So it always keeps me on my feet. And yeah, I still consider myself new to the stuttering community. I launched my podcast 2 years ago, and that's when I really started meeting other people who stuttered. So up until 2 years ago, I just avoided stuttering as much as possible. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, we are very glad you are part of the stuttering community now. Glad that you joined us. Michéle, you want to give us your introduction?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Michéle Ayoub, and I'm excited to introduce myself to you tonight. I am Lebanese who moved to US a few years ago, and I'm currently based in Boston. I'm proud to say that I managed to stutter well in 3 languages, Arabic, French, and English. I have a master's degree in interior design, and I currently work as an interior designer and sales associate at B&B Italia showroom in Boston. It's a high-end furniture manufacturing company. And that's it about me.
I did not know you stuttered in 3 languages. That is good.
3 of them.
Hard, but also great. Good for you.
Thank you.
And Zach.
Awesome. Hey, I'm Zach Cohen. I'm located in Chicago. My current role, I am a senior product manager for Numerator, where I talk to clients almost every day. So excited to be here. I noticed my stutter probably when I was 8 and thought it would be a phase. And I'd say it goes up and down. Some days I'm pretty fluent, and some days I'm not. So looking forward to talking to everyone in this group.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You're going to hear a lot from these people coming up. And we can just get right into it. So as you heard their brief career backgrounds, I want to get more into specifically what parts of your jobs are related to the sales and entrepreneurship sides and why you went into that. And I think the why is important because there's so many people who feel like they can't succeed in a job that is like has a lot of high verbal demands, and that's not true. You guys are all living proof of that. So whoever wants to kick us off, I will let you guys fight it out yourselves. But tell me, why did you go into your job and what do you like about it the most? If not, I will pick some. So Zach, you're first.
Yeah. In my current role, I talk with clients in our sales team almost every day. Early in my career, I did not want to have a job where I spoke often, so I'm surprised that I'm here at this point. I'd say that I kind of lucked into this kind of a job. I've always tried to focus on the quality of the work, not how I say the things that I say. Over hard work and luck and being in the right place at the right time, I have been able to be in a spot where I'm very close with our sales organization, very close with our customers, and pretty front-facing in a role that if you had said that I had been here a few years ago, I would not have guessed that.
Were you like, did you, I guess before you got into this exact job you have now, were you like, oh my gosh, this job will require all of this talking and selling the demo of this product? Like, did you ever like question if you could like complete the job essentially?
Yeah, I'd say even today, there are some days where I question it based off of my speech, but I think those days are less and less now. I think over time and with age, I've just learned to care less about outside perception and the voices inside of my head saying that I can't do it. For the most part, I'm comfortable in how I speak and comfortable in being in the crowd. If I happen to stutter, I stutter, and that was probably not the way that I felt a few years ago, but in 2023, I'm a lot more comfortable with having a stutter.
I definitely want to hear more later on about how you got more comfortable in that, because a couple years can actually be a really quick turnaround from, like really not wanting to pursue a job because of your stutter to then saying, I get by, I do it, and if I stutter, I don't care. So love to hear more about that in a bit. I'm going to bring the mic over to Michéle and ask the same questions. How did you get into your job? And I mean, you have to work face to face with people. So what made you want to get into that, and how do you handle the pressure of just being a person who stutters in your job?
I mean, a few years ago, if someone had asked me if I would ever work in sales, I would have laughed and said, not in a million years. Sales in my mind was for those who could talk smoothly, but a surprising turn of events led me to the world of sales. back in my university, during my graduation, I'm a project. I'm the manager of Roche Beaubois, and which is a furniture high-end. Furniture store. Mentioned to my instructor that the furniture sales could benefit from someone like me, even though I had never. I'm a considerate. At the time, I brushed it off and continued my career in event and interior design. However, life had different plans for me when I moved to US, and COVID-19 changed totally everything. 15 months, I found myself in my very first job interview, in-person job interview, and surprisingly, I got hired right away. That job was I worked in a showroom. It was for a local dealer who represent multiple Italian high-end brands. So I worked there for almost a year and a half, but originally I had planned to spend just a year there, just to aiming to gain experience in the US, and then I can move later and apply to an interior like interior designs role. Then fate took a turn when one of the brands we used to represent acquired my previous company, and now I work for B&B Italia. So it all happened by like chance and an event after another, and I trusted the universe, and here I am.
So when your company got acquired, did they say, we're going to put you in this different position, here's what you're going to do, and like, you know, that's it? Or did you like choose yourself to go into the more like on the floor face to face role, or how did that exactly work?
When I was with my previous, I was a sales, like I was an interior designer slash sales as well. But with my current job, I have been, I got hired at first as an interior designer and sales associate as well. Then very soon, I'll be happy to share that I'm taking a new role with them. I will be the kitchen and the wall system as a specialist. So I will be as well working in sales, but with a particular focus on the wall system and the kitchens. So
Congratulations on your new upcoming position. That's awesome. Ah, wow. So you had kind of always like worked in sales, and then you liked your job, you liked what you did, that you didn't feel like you had to like panic switch because you were going to be like doing a lot more interactions with people.
The thing is, I had interaction. I mean, the thing, when I first got the job in the US, they weren't hiring any interior design roles back during COVID or any event design. So the market was only for sales, as sales slash interior designer. That's when I panicked at first. At first was the panic, but when I start doing it, I mean, it was very stressful. It was not an easy. It was not like a straightforward, easy job. It was like every day a challenge, but we go through it.
Well, you have certainly clearly done a great job at getting through those challenges with your new upcoming role. So that's awesome. Maya, I want to hear about both of your careers. I know one is more entrepreneurship, and one you do a lot of like facilitating meetings, and just you have to do a lot of like verbal communications with people every day. So tell me how you decided to get into, well, to both of your jobs, really.
Yeah. So when I first like entered the job market, I just applied everywhere. Like I really wanted to live in San Francisco. So I literally just applied anywhere, everywhere, and ended up getting a job in PR. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into until I started. And I realized, wow, I have to like talk to people all the time. I have to like pitch stories all the time. So it's kind of like sales in that way. And it was an open plan office. So I had to like pitch in front of my colleagues and like stutter in front of them. And it was just, yeah, it was really hard. I know. So I was like, okay, I need to get out of this PR world because it was just, people just didn't understand my experience. And so I would get like marked down a lot on like my job performance reviews and stuff. And it was just super, like I just lost a lot of confidence in that period. And so I kind of discovered policy, and that's kind of where I am now. And I still talk a lot, but I really like the role because I'm able, like so much of my work is based in organizing and building relationships with people. And actually my stutter is my biggest asset because people can see my vulnerability right away, and like I can connect with people through that. So I'm glad I'm able to find a job where I feel like my stutter isn't like an obstacle. I still get frustrated, of course, when I'm like trying to facilitate a meeting and can't quite get the words out, but I definitely feel like I'm navigating it in a more healthy way. And then with Proud Stutter, that's where like I started the podcast because I was super depressed at work and needed a creative outlet. And so the podcast was born just because I felt like I was hiding such a big part of myself. And so a lot went into like me finally launching it. But ever since I've launched it, I feel like I've just entered this new kind of chapter in my life, where stuttering is such a big part of my life now. And it's been a really healthy, empowering journey. And yeah, it's hard to be an entrepreneur with a stutter sometimes, because so much of being an entrepreneur is having people believe in what you're doing. And sometimes that can be hard when you can't quite say the things the way you want to say it.
So my first question that I'm sure a lot of other people want to know too is, what is it like when you are recording a podcast and you're stuttering, and knowing that all these people are going to hear you stutter as many times as they want to go and hit replay? Because to me that is kind of a very scary thought. Like I'm just starting to dip my toe into like recording videos on Instagram, but like I still like cringe so much. I'm like, that was a really bad take because of my stutter, so let me just like try that again. Like, how do you handle that part of it with your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, the first, like, I would say like 8 episodes, it was really hard because I hated having to listen to myself stutter over and over again. That was really hard. But what made me keep going, because I didn't know how long I was going to go with this, but as soon as I released a few episodes, like the outpouring of people that just emailed me and said that they love the content, and it just really helped motivate me to keep going, even though it is uncomfortable to stutter and to like hear yourself stutter and to like put yourself out there. Like now the whole world knows I stutter. Like if you just Google me, like it's in my bio, it's everywhere. So I kind of can't take it back.
Mhm.
So it's definitely, I didn't really think through it all the way, which I think I'm glad, because I think if I would have overthought it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I
Mhm.
was in just such a dark, depressing place that I felt like I just needed to do something. And so that was the something, and it really helped me mentally. So yeah, it was definitely not easy, and I had a lot of people supporting me along the way, but it was really like you guys, like the community really cheering me on, that made me be like, okay, this is scary, but I'm going to keep going.
I think the best thing about being a person who stutters is the community, like how supportive everyone is and how many people were like willing to participate and share their story for this webinar, and just how many people show support. Like Zach, I was reading the comments on your LinkedIn post that you reshared, and just like the outpouring of support you had from like people that you're connected with on LinkedIn. It was just so nice to see and hear, and it's just like it makes a lot of the struggle that comes with being a person who stutters worth it when you when you feel you really are not alone, and you have that community showing up for you in so many ways. It's just, oh, it warms my heart so much. And so, I mean, all of you guys kind of touched a little bit on question 2. It seems like with Michéle and Zach, you guys cared more about the job, and like you know, maybe we're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this with my stutter, but you were kind of able to put that aside and really just go into your job and think like, my job and the amount that I want to succeed is bigger than the fears that I have with my stutter. And that's great. Which this kind of brings me to question 3. And I want to come back to you, Zach, because of your LinkedIn post. It seems like you're pretty open with your stutter. You mentioned to me that you had shared your story with your whole company on Slack. So tell me some more about that. What made you want to do it, and like what reactions you had and everything?
Yeah, I'd say that this is a recent thing where I'm open with my stutter. Folks who worked with me in the past, everyone knows that I stutter. I've typically taken jobs where I talk a lot, so it's hard for me to hide it. I've been doing speech therapy for about 1.5 years with a speech therapist, where instead of focusing on how to make me fluent, it's how to make me happy with how I speak. And I think that's just sort of changed my perspective overall, that I'm likely always going to stutter. And frankly, that's okay. So I can try my best to hide it or do my best to pretend that I'm fluent, but I'm likely never going to be 100% fluent. So I might as well act the way that I actually am. And honestly, the reception has been fantastic. People like to work with people that are open, and everyone has their own things. I am 100% capable in my job. I just happen to have a stutter also, which is okay.
I love everything you said. I too kind of came to that realization where I thought, you know, I'm probably never going to not have a stutter. I'm going to probably always have days where it's really hard and days where it feels not that hard. And I just want to be comfortable with myself and like get through those hard days. And it sounds like you're right there too. And also having that attitude of like, I know I am completely confident in my abilities to do my job. I just have a stutter, or it's not. But I have a stutter. It's and I have a stutter. And I love that. I think that's amazing. Have you had any kind of reaction that wasn't what you were expecting? And if so, how did you handle it?
I mean, for me, my stutter was the biggest thing in my life before, and I'm sure a lot of folks feel a similar way, where at times my stutter can just over-index on everything else in my life. But I've been surprised how, in the nicest way, people don't care that I stutter. They care about me as a person, and at work, they care about the actual work that I do. I know there are certain things that I'm good at that I do better than other people in the office, and even though I stutter, I still have those skills. So, yeah.
That is what so many people need to hear. Like, I think a lot of us are really scared that we're going to be judged so much in our jobs because of our stutter. But the reality is, people just want you to do your job and do it good. Like, that's all people care about. So when you say that, like, in the like nicest way, people have said they don't care. It's true. Like, for us, telling someone we stutter can be this huge, like, burden on us, and it's really scary. But the recipient, 9.5 times out of 10, are like, okay, anyways, blah, 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 your job. And it's like, it's really not that big of a deal to people that you work with, even in sales and entrepreneur jobs. And it's probably more of a strength than a bit too. So thank you for sharing those. And Michéle, how about you? Have you had any, moments of advertising with your coworkers, your managers, and how have those reactions gone? Good, bad, or just like, yeah, I don't really care. I just want this couch kind of thing.
Mainly that's it.
Yeah.
I'm quite open about my speech and my stutter, but like with other aspects of my life, I don't share personal things or allow people into my life like right away. It's take time for me to open up even about my speech. Like people in higher position or those who I don't frequently meet may not know about it, or I have like discussed that with them even, but my coworker or the people I work with in the showroom, or clients, maybe not really client that maybe I had like big blocks with, they definitely do know, but don't not really into like details. I've mentioned, I believe in front of few people that I am active with the and let's say, but nothing more into like details more than that.
Mm-hmm. You know your business, you know what you want to share, what you don't, and that's it. And it kind of seems like to you it doesn't really affect your day-to-day like tasks on the job. Is that accurate, you'd say?
I think I had in my mind before that will affect more that it is what it is actually. I think it's more when I have a client, it's more about them more than about me. It's not even like, it's not about my speech or my stutter. It's more about their time, and even it's not about me. That's mainly how it is. And I think even whenever I have like big blocks or anything, I can still manage to deliver all the information they need, and it's happening.
I think that's probably true in a lot of sales jobs, even in different industries, is the reality is, if you're doing your job, you're getting the client, the prospect, the customer to talk to you more, engage with you more, answer your questions, and it's about them and you getting the business, and like that's the bottom line usually. So there's not that much room for all of the other things that stuttering could impact, which is a good thing for us at least. So,
And I believe it's bigger in our mind that what it is actually. I mean,
oh yeah, it's all in the head.
it's on that.
All in the head. So Maya, I know you had probably a lot of days where you were in your head when you were working in PR, but how about right now? Does your stutter, well, I guess I should start with how have you like integrated your podcast with your, current job? Like, hey, like I have this podcast, it's about stuttering, blah, blah, blah. Like, do you kind of intertwine the two a lot, or do you just keep them both very separate?
Yeah, I intertwine it when it's appropriate. Like when I was first starting my current job 2 years ago, we had to say like a fun fact about ourselves to like everyone, which was like 200 people. And I said that I stuttered, and I have a podcast called Proud to Stutter. And so that was, yeah, that was super scary, but I just felt in that moment that I wanted to do it. And so, yeah, now, so now everyone that I work with knows I stutter. And, but the situations where I go back and forth is when I'm like speaking at like a conference or an event that's work related, and the content has like nothing to do with stuttering, and I always like go back and forth on whether I should disclose or not. Like there's been some moments where I would disclose and then do my presentation, but it's always, I always go back and forth, not saying that it like I'm not comfortable with sharing, but I'm like, is it like appropriate or not? Like, am I going to distract people? That's always like, because it's like I always want to be an advocate and like spread stuttering awareness as much as possible, but like I don't want to draw that line at work where I'm like I stutter, and then like yeah, so it's I struggle with like when to do that.
I know what you mean. It's like you want to tell people because it's better for your mental state at that time. Like it takes the pressure off of you to maybe try to sound fluent or try not to stutter too badly. But you also want to be very like tasteful and appropriate with how you say it. I personally am not one that would ever start something by saying like, I'm a person who stutters. So on to this topic, like I am always one to kind of like maybe mention it like jokingly or as a response. If someone's like, oh, can you repeat that? Then it might be like, yeah, I have a stutter. I'm a person who stutters. So if anyone else needs me to repeat anything else, like that's okay. So there are definitely ways that you can like weave it in there, but I get what you mean about, still kind of like towing the line a little bit. It can be hard. So you said you do a lot of like speaking at conferences. Like, do you have to speak to a lot of people? Like, how big are these things? Are they long things? Are they presentations or what?
Yeah, it's a mix of stuff. Like for example, I'm speaking at a event in Stanford in front of 200 people in like a month, and so
It's good for you.
yeah, so that's probably like the scariest thing. And there's only like 30 minutes, so like having that time crunch is even more scary. because you know, like as a stutter, it's like it's hard when you have that that time, you know, like a little amount of time to like say what you want to say. So yeah, I have a few like presentation, like workshop type things where I'll be speaking at like large crowds coming up for work. So yeah.
So half an hour is a short amount of time in your field, or in, I guess, your job for like the public speaking forums.
So I'll be sharing the stage with 3 other people. So
Okay.
my time will be like condensed in comparison to theirs. So we'll each have like our bit to like respond to questions and stuff, but I think each of us will get like a few questions each, and so we have to like keep our responses tight. And I hate preparing for presentations. Like it gives me a lot of anxiety. So I'm not the one to like type everything out and like read it over and over again. Like I don't do well in that. So a lot of the times I like prepare a little bit and then I just wing it, which is probably not advisable as a person who stutters, but that's just kind of how I roll. Like I don't have the energy sometimes to like over prepare like I've heard a lot of other stutters do.
I can't over prepare. I just get, yeah, it just causes me too much like stress. But Zach, as someone else who also does like presentations for work, what do you do to prepare? Or I guess, did you used to have more of a rigorous preparation for it when you were newer to your job, or not? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I'd say earlier in my career, I definitely over prepare, and that was not very helpful, to be honest. I would get too much in my head.
Yep.
These days, I try and just focus on the content of the things that I am working on, and that seems to help. If I'm the expert in my field and I happen to stutter, that's okay.
Good attitude to have with that. I love that. We can get to maybe like a few more questions. Oh, wow. We already kind of sort of dove into this one here. And if you feel more pressure to sound fluent or stutter less when you're giving a pitch or a presentation, how do you guys handle any sort of pressure you might have felt to appear fluent or to just not stutter a lot? And I'll start with Michéle.
My daily job involved like sharing information with a client. It's like non-ending and non-stop, either via phone or like in person. So usually to cope with the stress like associated with it, I've decided to focus on giving like my best performance for that moment, and on like delivering the right message to the person I am presenting to, whether it is like a potential client or not. It's like it may be just like a singular opportunity with them, and usually when I am faced with a different client, I usually like approach it with the mindset that it's a lost case. And in those situations, like I end up saying the exact words I want to say without like switching word or changing the format of my sentence. And usually that leads to like my best talking performance. And I mean, I've just learned that worrying too much make things just worse.
So you found when you stop trying to use tricks to sound fluent, you end up sounding more fluent.
Exactly. And just when that, I mean, when you feel that client or that job you're doing as if like you are losing it and you have no like emotion to win it, kind of, that's like it's a loss. That's the least thing you can care about anymore. And that's, I think, when, I mean, that's your last opportunity to like bring that client back to you. So that's when, I mean, it's a lost case. So do, like, I would say, like, do wherever you can do to bring it back to you. It's that kind of like mindset.
Anyone else relate to that at all? No. Maybe not. Maya, have you felt a lot of pressure to speak fluently while recording your podcast, even though it's about being a person who stutters?
Not really, just because, you know, it's all about stuttering. And so like, that's probably the least amount of pressure I have to sound fluent. And like, I actually like try to welcome my stutter on the show, and avoid like all the tricks that I've learned to like avoid my stutter. So like, I'm trying to like unlearn all that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting because like when I first started editing my show, I would kind of over edit in a way. And it's not like I would edit out stuttering, but I would like try so hard to make it sound a certain way. But now I'm starting to like really leave in the filler words more, and like just like our natural way of speaking and stuttering. So yeah, it's definitely interesting because you like want to have it be listenable, but you also want it to be authentic. And so yeah, it's definitely, but I just always go with my instinct and what I feel is right. And I feel like I've been doing a good job, but yeah, I don't really feel the pressure to sound fluent. Only when I'm like presenting in front of a large group of strangers. But I do like the tip of like, if you stutter mid presentation, to just be like, oh yeah, like I stutter. I think I've never tried that. So I think I'll try that out and let you guys know how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, advertising your stutter is such a unique thing to every person. Like, I know this committee has presented a few webinars about advertising, and they're all great resources, by the way, if you ever want to like look them up. I think you can read like the chat transcripts in there too, but like everyone's different. And even though you may have the same exact job in sales as someone who does not stutter, like how you accomplish your job and how you present yourself and what you have to do good at your job is always going to be unique to you. And I don't really know what I meant by that just now, but I think I had a point in my head that I was trying to make, and it like wasn't really translating that well, but that's okay. But also, as someone who has to talk on recordings that are probably saved for prospects to look at, watch later, Zach, does that ever make you like nervous to think like, oh, people can just replay this and hear me stutter like whenever they want?
I've actually used it as a learning opportunity. So all of the sales calls that I am on are recorded. So if I'm trying to work on something for a specific day or week, I can go back and listen to it. And honestly, most times I feel like I sound terrible and I go back and listen, like that's not half bad. So I think having the feedback available is very helpful, because I think based on experience, I've tricked my brain to think that whenever I give presentations, I stutter a lot more than I actually do. But then when I go back and listen, it sounds okay.
I wish I had that. I feel like I'm the opposite. I'll go back and watch something, and like what seemed like a very small stutter, I watch it and I'm like, oh, but that's probably just me hyper focusing on it, because like we all, overthink and hyper focus on our stutters just in our heads. So
I think
I
it's helpful in my job that I'm not giving a presentation, I'm talking with a customer. So they're talking back to me. When
Mhm.
I'm showing slides and I'm the only person talking for 20 minutes, I find that's more challenging. When I get that feedback from a customer for something that I'm showing, it's definitely a lot more helpful because I'm not fixated on my stutter if they're asking me a question about something that I'm trying to sell.
Have you ever felt at any point that stuttering has had a direct impact on your job in a good or a bad way?
I think my job would be easier if I didn't stutter.
Mhm.
But I've definitely built a few superpowers because I do stutter. I think my ability to listen, my ability to have a plan. I wish I could go up on stage and wing it like some people that I work with, but I can't.
Ryan?
So I think that having a stutter has helped to build skills that if I did not stutter, I would not have.
Michéle, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think stuttering have like a positive impact on my career as a salesperson. And it really like has shaped my personality. I mean, it's made me like a great listener. And I think a lot of clients enjoy spending time with me. And in fact, a good number of them are like returning clients. And I've built like strong relationship with them. But I mean, it's definitely add a lot of pressure on on my daily day. I mean, especially when I doubt my performance. I mean, this like a lot of pressure, and you need like to double like efforts, your efforts, and it's hectic, and it's make you by the end of the day I'm a I'm a I'm a I'm a I'm a tired.
So you're saying like it's given you these great skills like it has for Zach, but the reality is like it can be really hard on a day-to-day basis in your job. And, do you think if you could go back to your younger self and know exactly what kind of career you would have, what do you think you would tell yourself about that?
I would say believe in yourself and magic will happen. And I mean, remember, as like no one will cheer for you as loudly as you can cheer for yourself. I mean, in this, if you're considering like any path that you're going through, you should know that you are smart, and I'm a I'm a talented and a hard worker, and nothing will stop you. And you are way bigger than your I'm a stutter, and you will be a valuable asset to any institution you will ever join. And someone once told me this, when you have like a clear a destination in mind, people will make a way for you. When you lack direction, they will find a seat for you.
Damn, that's so true. Oh my God, that was like a beautiful note to my younger self. Like, oh, that was heartwarming.
I mean, I wish I had those in mind 2 years ago. I was way less hard on myself.
Maya, what about you? I mean, I'm sure you can probably echo some of Michele's words, but what advice would you give your younger self who was applying for any and every job and ended up working in PR and then ended up in a job where you're giving these big presentations to hundreds of people and starting a stutter and talking about your podcast? Do you think your younger self would be excited to know that that's what lies ahead for you? Or like, what advice? I kind of asked like three different questions there, so pick whichever one you want, but what do you think your younger self would need to hear?
Yeah, I would just say to her, everything's gonna be okay. Like, you're gonna be okay. Like, I always had this fear when I was growing up that I wouldn't be successful because of my stutter, and that I would never have like a relationship because of my stutter. Like, there's just all these like fears in my head. And then yeah, and so I just lived with this fear for so long, and it just held me back for so long.
Did we lose you, Maya?
I think so. I can't hear her.
Oh no, I was like, I wanted to hear. Okay, well, maybe she'll rejoin and she can continue. Zach, any words of wisdom you would give to your younger self, if you knew what kind of a job you would do when you got older?
Yeah, I think I would just tell myself not to be so hard on myself and to let myself know in the end it's all going to work out, that I'm still going to have a stutter. I'm likely always going to have a stutter, but in terms of having a successful job, a successful life, my stutter is not in the way of that.
Very, very true. That's what I really wanted to, um, you know, deliver in this webinar, is to is to get people to see that being a person who stutters does not mean that you can't be successful in certain careers. You can be successful in any career you choose, even if it's something in sales and entrepreneurship where you think you'll be judged the most for having a stutter. It's not true. And people care more about your ability to do the job than they do about you having a stutter, and that having a stutter doesn't negatively affect your ability to do your job. So if anyone wants to get into any kind of job, I mean, you have three amazing panelists here that can continue to give more advice. Speaking of which, I am going to let Maya hop back on, and I think she's back now. If you want to resume with telling us what advice you would give your younger self, or to people here in the audience too. I'd love to hear the rest of your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure where exactly I cut off, but I think the main thing I wanted to say is that, I lived with this fear of like not being successful, not finding a relationship, and like all these things. Like, I always felt like I would have to settle for a job I didn't like, or settle for a person. And I just always felt like I wasn't going to be able to live like a fulfilling life. And so I just wish I could have like eased those fears in when I was younger, because I lost a lot of like, I just was like this anxious person for so long. So I just wish I could have like taken a lot of that away earlier.
Yeah, I think a lot of our younger selves need to hear that. And I don't know what the age demographic is of the people who are here, but whether you're in college pursuing jobs, you are in the middle of your career changing jobs, or you have been off the job market for a while and you want to get back in, I think like it's gonna be okay, and you can do whatever job you want to do as a person who stutters, and you will have anxiety. It will be hard, but it won't be impossible, and you can do it. Okay, well, that was so lovely. We're going to move into the Q&A from the panel. We have just a couple minutes. You guys can ask questions to the panelists about anything you would like. I know David Mitzman had his hand raised. Is there a question that you wanted to ask one of the panelists, David? Is he on here? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, he is. If you're there, David, David Mitzman, if your hand was raised earlier and if you had a question, you can go ahead and come off mute and ask your question. But if not, then that's okay too.
I'm gonna scroll up into the chat, but if anyone has anything, just jump off mute and ask your question. And it's okay if you stutter, even though it may be kind of scary to do that. I'm scrolling up so much.
Well, if nobody else has a question, I actually have a question for Maya.
Go for
it. So in my mind, and you can tell me, of course, if this is the case or not, but I think that with you and your podcast, I think that you're like, when it comes to sales and entrepreneurship and all that, I think you're in a pretty unique position, because one, you are a person who stutters. So when you're trying to sell your podcast or to get the word out, you're having to do that as a person who stutters. And at the same time, while you're trying to do that, you're also, I suppose, having to like educate people, right, on what stuttering is. So for example, if you're on a if you're speaking to an individual or maybe a group of people face to face, or if you're on a platform and you're trying to promote your podcast, I would assume that chances are a lot of people that you talk to don't know what stuttering is. So I would imagine that you're also like that you are trying to engage in sales while being a person who stutters, and at the same time having to like educate people who say, what's stuttering? What is that? What, a podcast on stuttering. Well, what exactly is stuttering? How do you navigate that? How do you handle like engaging in sales as opposed to stutters, and then also at the same time have to like educate people as well as to what stuttering is?
Yeah, I mean, it's very exhausting, like to have to like, not like defend myself, but like, because my stutter, it comes and goes. So when I open up to people and to tell them I stutter, I have this non-for-profit, they get really confused. Like, wait, you don't stutter. So I'm always having to like defend myself. almost in a way, because I have a covert stutter. And it's just it can get exhausting and frustrating. Like, why can't people just like, just know what stuttering is already? Because like, as we all know, stuttering is so unique and different, and it's not really how people think it is. Like, it's hard to notice some stutters. And so yeah, it's been hard to navigate in that way. So, but yeah, I don't know, like, but I think what keeps me going, like I said, is just like the community. And like when I have tough days and people are just like questioning my identity, I'm just like, okay, like I'm just going to keep going. We'll get there eventually. People will understand us eventually. So yeah, it's hard.
We'll get there. We'll get through those tough days. Everyone gets through them one way or another. So Cameron, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, everyone, and thanks to the three presenters and the people organising this. It's been very good and great to hear you speaking. My question is, the more I read into stuttering and stuttering research and philosophy around it, and more generally, the more I come to the conclusion that the way we see the world really matters to the way we see the world really matters to the way we see ourselves, and has an impact on our stuttering, or at least that's how I see it. And for years and years, I think I operated with an understanding that the world was a scary and dangerous place. And I think that definitely affected my sense of self, and certainly affected my stuttering behaviours, and especially my avoidance behaviours around speaking. So this question is to all three participants. So anyone can answer it. Have you found that being more active, being more in the world, and pushing against your comfort zone, doing the job that you're doing, have you found that your perceptions of the world, or your thoughts of the world, have changed?
I can go first. That's a really good question. And I think because of the last couple of years in COVID, I've had the opportunity to try a bunch of other things. And there are other things that I'm not perfect in. Like in COVID, I learned how to golf, play tennis. I am not very good at that either. And I think just being out there and being comfortable in things that I can and can't do makes everything a bit less scary. And the ability to laugh things off when I try something new or put myself out there and it doesn't go as planned, and that's okay.
I can go next. For me, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think I had a fear that was bigger than me, and I had doubt as well in myself. And I think I've learned that everyone has their own issue that they deal with. The thing is that as a person who's I'm a stutter, our issue is like kind of floating, and everything that's come with it, you can see it right away. But being an observant of the world, you can see the issue that every other person have like under layer. And once you get to know more people, and once you're busy more with your life, you get to see people more in realistic view, and the image that you have for them, it's come to be smaller, and you don't see that your problem is that big anymore, and you can tell that everyone else have as big problem as you have, but you cannot notice it like on spot or right away.
Yeah, that made me think of something in response to your question, Cameron. I think my stutter has made me like just be more aware of people, and like kind of, I guess, empathy, and just really kind of getting a read on people. Like when I'm like, I don't want to say like I'm judging people, but I just feel this sense of like I can kind of see the human in people in a weird way. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing, or one of the most helpful things that my stutter has given me.
I've been talking this whole time and I was on mute. No one told me. It's fine. Cameron, that was a great question. Thank you so much. And you guys all had very great answers. I think mine would be probably a combination of all three. Like everyone has something, and I think, having a stutter makes you more like empathetic to people, but also at the same time helps you see that some other things are just really like not that big of a deal. And sometimes it's good to have that more like laid back, nonchalant perspective with things. So great question. David Mitzman, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. If you still wanted to ask your question, you can. This will be your last call.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. This is the first time I have like ever done this, so I apologize for my whatever.
That's okay.
First, I just want to compliment all of the people. I think your presentations were well thought out. I thought they were extremely insightful. So I want to thank you for that. I don't know whether this is a question and or a statement about something. So I'll just put it in that type of a framework. I'm a senior, obviously, and I started my own tour company in 1980. And I had it for 41 years until COVID, and I lost it. And that was very tragic. And after that, I knew that it wasn't going to come back the way it was. And I did primarily bus tours for all kinds of groups. And before it was over, I was running probably 225 buses a year. And I did it all myself. And I did all the sales, all the PR, all the presentations, etc. So fast forward, I'm now working for the bus company there that I used in their sales and marketing division. And I stuttered. I've stuttered my whole life. I've always, after I got out of high school, I put myself out in public I made sure everything that I was doing, it was forcing me to speak. It was a challenge to me to be able to speak. And I feel that I've accomplished quite a bit. I find though in my job, and this is what I'm getting to now, is that I do probably 75% telephone calls. Those are actually cold calls where you don't know who you're going to be speaking to necessarily. And the rest of it is being at various networking functions, etc. And so I find, because so much of it is on the phone, that when I have a block, if you want to call it that, where I feel like I'm going to stutter, I try and substitute. And I know that's the worst thing you can do. And so I'm wondering on what my question is, when you are speaking to people, not in person, where you can have they're on the eye contact, but over the phone where that person, well, they don't know you, you don't know them, and so you're representing yourself in the company. Do you ever find you try to substitute words when you know you're going into a hard block or something to that effect? And does that mess you up more, or do you just try and regroup within your mind and say, okay, I've got to do this? And sometimes you get hard on yourself and whatever, but you keep on going. And I think I'm having that now, whereby when I like speak to people, never spoke to them before, telling them about our product, etc., that I think I'm very self-conscious about my speech for the first time in my life, really. So I don't know what to do sometimes, and I like your input.
Does anyone on the panel have any advice to share to respond to that?
I think there are times when I become more self-conscious about my speech than others, and that could be on the phone or in person on a Zoom meeting. And I definitely tend to overthink things, especially when I know a block is coming. When it's tougher, I notice that if I speak a little bit slower, that tends to help me out. And I don't know if that's a trick that works all the time, but I know if like anxiety is high, emotions are high, talking slower is typically my approach to get through it until I get to a better day.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add on and just say, like, all of us at some point have probably, used tricks to get through a block or just a really bad stutter. And while I think tricks aren't something that we should rely on all the time or use as a crutch, because they lose their power and it takes away our ability to have like fun, spontaneous, natural, forward moving speech. I think if you're in just a really tough spot, whether you're doing a big presentation, you're cold calling on the phone, having a Zoom or Teams meeting, or you're talking to someone in person, sometimes just the only way is to like just do nothing and get through it. Like if you have a trick that you kind of have used as a crutch, I think every now and then, go easy on yourself, and it's okay if you have to revert back to old tricks to really kind of get through a tough moment. But I think recognizing, oh, this is a really hard moment, this is a really hard block, I don't want to keep up in this like stutter right now, just acknowledging that it's a hard moment and that it's okay to have these anxious thoughts and feelings of dread go through you is the biggest thing you can do that will actually help you get through it. Because I think by acknowledging it for what it is, you're taking away like the power it has on you. And so if you're in a moment and you're like, I cannot get out my words and I just want to like substitute or speak slower, like kind of call it out in your brain. And if you have to use a trick to get through it, that's okay. But, just don't let them have such a powerful effect on you that you feel like it threw off your whole conversation or your whole day. That was my long-winded answer there.
I think it was a great one. And I think all of you are spot on. I think sometimes you can be really, really, really hard on yourself, particularly when you are speaking. They're in a public type of an atmosphere. They're in sometimes, at least in my case, they're on the phone is probably where I have a little more problem. It isn't much, but I seem to do much better when I'm out networking and doing public speaking, and I do a lot of that. They're in front of very, very large groups. I guess maybe I just have a better feeling about having they're on the visual look, they're on the eye contact, as opposed to thinking, God, what is this person thinking about me when I'm trying to get through what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think we had a webinar not too long ago about having like different meetings, like John, Pam, doesn't that ring a bell? Like we talked about like having phone calls versus virtual meetings versus in person. Maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like we had a webinar that kind of addressed that topic of how you can adapt to different environments for work since COVID. So I'll check.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can connect with you if you're on LinkedIn, David, and I will look you up. And if we have a resource about that, I will let you know. I know there's another question. We are pretty much out of time, but if it could be quick, we could give you one more question. Please pardon my pronunciation. Okatwan, Okatween. Help me out here. Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I was wanting to ask how do you motivate yourself, and how do you get through the difficult looks and stuff like this,
Well, sometimes for me, you have no choice but to get through it. But I think my last answer can kind of relate to like acknowledging that this is just a really hard moment and that's okay. And however I choose to get through this, whether it's using a trick or if I want to go cry in my car afterwards, like whatever you have to do, it's okay. We're hardest on ourselves. So my answer is to just remind yourself to be gentle and kind. Does anyone else have anything to say?
1000% agree. 1,000,000%.
Michéle, Maya, Zach, any contributions? No, that's okay.
I
Ooh, go for it, John.
just real quick, I'm sorry. I just kind of wanted to just add just something just here at the end that one of the things I use when I get a weird look or a smirk or a giggle, all that is that a lot of that is a result of ignorance. It's not malice. Sometimes it is, but if you're getting like if you're in a block and you get like a weird look or a smirk or something like that, it's more often than not. It's not because they're being malicious, but it's a result of ignorance. And like Ariel said, just move through it and move past it, because really that is the best thing to do, and that's really the only thing you can do. And if there's more rude behavior, like if somebody is laughing in your face, then what I do is I stand up for myself. Hey, excuse me, I stutter. I have a problem with my speech. I really don't appreciate that. That's kind of if that behavior escalates in that fashion. So sorry, I just kind of wanted to
No, don't apologize.
to slide this in there. Well, it's for the
You're fine.
panelists, but I didn't want to jump in, but it's just something I just wanted to mention here.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of times it's just people are idiots and you're just feeling whatever, you just do your own thing for lack of a, more polished way to say it. But I did just paste a couple of resources in the chat. Maya worked with some other people to produce the short Stuttering documentary. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. It was about like 20-ish minutes long, and it was very good, very inspiring, and you can hear more about Maya's story in there. I also posted her podcast link on Spotify, but I believe it's on all of like the typical podcast channels. And then lastly, I just posted my website, my blog. I like to write about, stuttering topics, a lot about what we talked about here tonight. And then Maya also put an alternate link to her documentary as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. It's almost 10 o'clock on us East Coasters here, so I have to get to bed soon. But thank you so much to Maya, Michéle, Zach. You guys have given phenomenal advice. I love to hear your stories, and I'm so glad you guys were able to take time out of your afternoon, your night to be here. And I hope that this was a very helpful, insightful panel for everyone. I would say the last thing I will mention is that the We Stutter at Work committee, like I said briefly in the beginning, does offer a practice interview. So if anyone is interviewing for a career in sales and entrepreneurship and you want practice with that, you can certainly get that. Just go to westutter.org/careers success and you'll be able to navigate to it over there. So with that being said, thank you guys again so much. And thank you for attending, the attendees, everyone. It was great. John, Pam, any other final words from either of you?
No, well, yeah, I just want to thank you and all of the panelists. This was a really great webinar. I think there were some very profound things that were shared just overall by all of you. So thank you so much for all of that. And then just how to find us just real quick on the NSA's web page. If you go to westutter.org, it's the main web page, and then you'll see a number of tabs on top. You go to resources, and it'll and once you go there, it'll bring down a drop down menu, and then you'll go to career success. That's where you can see all of our webinars, and that's also where you can sign up for a mock interview too. If you're having a job that's coming up, or if you're in the job market searching and you want to brush up on those skills like Ariel just mentioned, then we'd be more than happy to help you out with all of that. So yeah, that's all I got.
And I'd just like to just put a shout out to everybody for our next webinar, which will also be the last for 2023. On November 29th, we're going to have a webinar on establishing employee resource groups at work, which should be really, really exciting. We have somebody from Starbucks corporate office, and we have somebody from PwC, Price Waterhouse Coopers, joining us as well. And both of them have established very successful ERGs at their workplaces. So mark your calendar, Wednesday, November 29th, right after Thanksgiving. We'll all be full from our turkey and interested in learning new things. So, and again, I want to just applaud everybody for the amazing job tonight. So thank you all.
Great. We'll see hopefully most of you back on November 29th. Thank you guys again, and have a great night, everyone.